Hi! So I was not intending on making a video tonight, but recently I've just been having a lot of thoughts going through my head about the remake Beauty and the Beast movie, and they are annoying me and I really just need to vent and get them out. So how I want to spend your time here is comparing some scenes from the original one and the remake one, and just contrasting the chemistry between Beast and Belle and how in the original one it works and you do believe that a relationship happens at the end, and how in the remake one that doesn't happen and you do not buy their overall relationship. So I've chosen a few scenes to go over, and so let's just dive right in. So I kind of semi want to go chronologically through the movie. And so the first time they meet, of course, is in the cell when her father is being held captive. There's so much you could talk about in that scene, but I'm going to skip over it, and I'm going to move on to when the Beast is asking Belle to dinner. And it's such an interesting dynamic between them because the Beast is trying so hard to be civil, to be a gentleman in the best way he knows how at this point, because he's not stupid. He understands that she is an opportunity to break the spell, so he knows he needs to start trying to change to appeal to her, which is something they completely dropped in the remake one. In the live action, the Beast is a complete jerk through the first half of the movie. He's not sympathetic, he's not nice, he's just annoying and bratty, and I don't like how they changed that part. After that, they do have a few more interactions, but I'm going to jump to the next most significant one, which is after he has saved her from the wolves and they are back in the castle. So in the remake one, this scene is so important for establishing the dynamic between the two characters, establishing their relationship, but also giving us so much insight into who they are as individuals. This scene makes a point about Belle that I absolutely love. One of her characteristics of mine that is just one of my favorites, which is she is strong in her own way. She's one of the nicest Disney princesses there is. She's so polite all the time and kind and thoughtful, but it's instances like this that show us she isn't going to let people take advantage of her. She knows when to stand up for herself, and she knows her worth. And so it comes into play here. The Beast starts challenging her and is mean to her, and she pushes back. And then their little back and forth has a little tussle of power, right? But by the end, Belle comes out on top. The Beast, he's not used to being challenged. He has been the master for, well, his whole life. I don't know when he would have ever been challenged. And so what this sets up, which is so important, is now, at the end of that little tussle, they are on the same level. Because up to this point, it has been captor captive, master prisoner. But now they are on the same page and to a place where they can actually progress as equals, where they wouldn't have been able to before. And after it's done, Belle doesn't back away. She doesn't leave triumphantly. She goes back to help healing his wounds. She's so nice and so caring. And it is demonstrated here. One of my favorite qualities about her is that she is so polite.
By the way, thank you for saving my life.
And it's this way through the whole movie, and I love it. It doesn't matter who she's talking to.
I'm very sorry, Gaston, but I just don't deserve you.
Whoa.
It doesn't matter the circumstance.
In this one.
That's very kind of you, but I'm not going to dinner.
And it doesn't matter how she's being treated.
Please.
No, thank you.
She is always polite. But as I said, she's not a pushover. Belle is such an excellent role model. She is so admirable. I love Belle. Now let's see how they handled it in the remake.
That hurts.
If you held still, it wouldn't hurt as much.
If you hadn't run away, none of this would have happened.
Well, if you hadn't frightened me, I wouldn't have run away.
Well, you shouldn't have been in the West Wing.
Well, you should learn to control your temper.
First off, the Beast just sounds like a brat. He's just laying on his bed with his back to her, kind of looking over his shoulder, just being whiny. It's not appealing and it's not attractive, especially since they decided to have him go shirtless. Why? No one wanted that. And honestly, it feels like Belle is trying to pick a fight. He just seems like he's over this, but she just keeps coming back at him. And then, when the copy-paste dialogue is done, she walks away. There's no resolution. She just abandons this conversation before it's over. What? So where's their relationship left right now? It's left hanging. Ugh. I don't know why they did that. It puts them in such an awkward place at this point in the movie. Okay, so the next big scene in both movies is the library scene, but each of the movies have a small scene leading up to it, but it's different in them. So let's look at those two scenes first. In the animated one, it's Belle standing out in the snow and the Beast being up on his balcony, realizing these feelings that he has for her. And it starts the progression on his side of him being in love with her. It's just so sweet. I love it so much. Now the scene in the remake one is a scene where Beast is laying on his bed, healing, I guess, and Belle is sitting next to him randomly reciting Shakespeare. And then he proceeds to start insulting and making fun of the one and only thing that's important to her in the world. Once again, he just comes off as such a jerk. And I really don't blame Dan Stevens for this. Dan Stevens did a great job with what he was given. He was just given very little. So then proceed to library scene. In the animated, this is the first real time we feel chemistry between the two that you can tell is going to develop into romantic chemistry. And there's something super important that I don't hear hardly anyone talking about that I just really think is important, which is, you know how everyone accuses this movie of being a Stockholm Syndrome situation? To me, it's not, and here's why. Belle is not kind to the Beast until he is kind to her. She's never trying to get the affection of or be nice to this mean captor. It is not until he shows that he can be respectful and that he is nice before she starts showing any sort of kindness towards him. Now, like I said, she is always polite. That's never a question. She's such a nice person, but she's not showing him any sort of affection until he is kind to her. The remake one actually really does this quite poorly, where Belle is starting to be nice to him way before he starts being nice to her. And in the remake, it is such a shame how him giving her the library is such an afterthought. It's so meaningless, and it's just a wasted opportunity. We are just over an hour into this remake movie, and there is still absolutely no evidence that these two characters could be a couple. So the next big emotional connection is with the song Something There, but in the remake they actually add in another scene before that, which had so much potential to work, and it didn't. And it's when they're out walking and they go onto the bridge over the water, and she's reading a book out loud to him or whatever. So I think in this movie what they were doing was, in the animated one, kind of what one of their big bonding things was Belle making the Beast more sophisticated. And in this one they wanted to go a different route. They wanted to change that and have them both be smart and have them bond that way. I actually appreciate that. That's not a bad idea, but it didn't quite work. And so the transformation that she gives to him internally, instead of it being making him want to be more humane, what it is, I guess, is him waking up and seeing the world again or something. And the only time I really get that message is in this scene.
I feel as if I'm seeing it for the first time.
So I guess what they were going for is she is opening his eyes, making him want to live again, whatever that kind of a message is, but it's only kind of shown in this one scene, and I don't feel like it was done very effectively, so therefore it's a waste of time, and it's unfortunate that route that they wanted to go down just didn't lead anywhere. So that segues us into going into the song Something There. Now in the animated one, it starts out with showing them in a few different interactions, right? It's showing time passing, they're eating dinner, they're going out and playing with birds. But something that I love that they do is so subtle is, during these interactions when Beast is kind of being silly or goofy, Belle's reactions are so important. She is never looking down on him. She's never thinking less of him. You can tell that she is wanting to help him. Unlike with the case and the birds with the snow, she's not looking down on him. These birds are scared of him because he's a beast, and so she's helping them to be comfortable with him. It's just so sweet, these gestures that she's making. And in the live action, they try to do something like this, and it's with the horse. And it has the same motivation behind it, but it's not executed as well. Because in the remake one, after they have that little moment, Belle kind of leaves. And she leaves his side in the animated one as well, but how it happens is she touches his paw and then stands up to go elsewhere. And that is such an effective, subtle way to show how she feels towards the Beast. She's quite comfortable with him in order to be able to subconsciously lean her arm on him. It's so meaningful that she would do that. And in the live action one, how they separate from each other is she just awkwardly kind of gives him this half nod and just kind of backs away. I'm genuinely wondering when the heck I'm going to start caring about these two together. Okay, now something interesting happens. In the remake movie, there are 2 additional scenes inserted in the next bit of the movie here that aren't in the animated version. The first one is actually the only scene to me in this remake movie that I feel any sort of bonding between Belle and the Beast. And it's when they go out and they're sitting together out in the snow and they're talking about the books that they're reading. Their cute little back and forth is done so well, and I love it. Especially with the dialogue.
When I enter the room, laughter dies.
Me too. The villagers say that I'm a funny girl, but I'm not sure they mean it as a compliment.
I'm sorry.
That is one of the few times I actually feel a connection between them. I love it. But then skip to the next scene, and it just all goes downhill. They introduce the book. The stupid book that this enchantress gave the Beast is one of his gifts or whatever when she put him under the spell. This book is so stupid for so many reasons. I could talk about this book forever, but I won't. Anyway, the scenario that it puts them in is they go to Paris. They go to her childhood home to explore her past and what happened to her mom. Fine. I personally don't see the need for that storyline. I feel like it goes nowhere. But why they did it, obviously why they put it in there is because they wanted Belle and Beast to have a storyline to relate with, which is their lost mothers, right? So you would think that would go somewhere. And this is the opportunity for it to go somewhere, and it doesn't. Here's specifically when they screwed up.
I'm sorry I ever called your father a thief.
I'm sorry I ever called your father a thief? That's what you're choosing to say in that moment? She just discovered how her mom died. This is a prime opportunity for you to bring up your mom and you guys bond over that storyline that they made up. Talk about your moms. Ugh. If they had talked about their moms right there, I finally would have felt like these 2 characters related and there was a relationship that could happen. But they didn't. The next scene that I want to talk about isn't a scene, but it should have been. It is a throwaway line that the Beast says that I wish that they had shown us.
I saw her in the ballroom and said, "You're making everything look so beautiful, we should have a dance tonight." I never imagined she'd actually say yes.
I want to see that. I need to see that because that's telling us that Belle actually does have some sort of affection for him. He invited her to dance and she says yes. I would have loved to have seen Emma Watson's face delivering that line, because then I would have been able to see and believe that she wants to spend time with the Beast, that she has some sort of affection for him. So it bothers me so much that they threw that line in there so they're not just suddenly dancing. It's like, oh, there's a lead up, right? But it just makes me so much more mad. I wish we had seen that, because then I would have seen their relationship progress. But instead we just hear about it. I still have not seen Emma look at all like she cares about the Beast. So that should have been a scene, but it wasn't. And that brings us to the ball scene. In the animated version, by this point, we can tell the Belle and Beast are in love, and they've sold it to us so convincingly. We believe it because they've done their job and told their story well enough for us to know that these 2 characters love each other. But in the remake one, they're not there yet. Now I want to share a quote that Emma has said that pertains to this scene that I think gives quite a bit of insight. And she says, "The scene that I wear that dress in and I have that dance in, it really tells the story of Beast and Belle falling in love, you know? We don't have a huge amount of time in the story to tell that story. The dance, for me, is really where the audience starts to see it happening and starts knowing that it is happening." Now, I'm not actually going to shut this idea down right away because it is not unheard of. There are dozens of examples in movies of where couples fall in love on screen during a dance. This isn't new. This is tried and tested. And so, if they wanted to use the movie to have more time for them to fall in love, you know, instead of it happening so much earlier, but then the dance scene be what sells it, I'm okay with considering that. That's not an awful idea. The problem is, it didn't work. And a pretty big chunk of the blame can actually be put on the cinematography. So much of it is shot really wide so you can't see their faces. And then when it does come in close, a lot of the time there's a lot of movement, and so you don't see their expressions very well. Another part of the problem is who you have acting. One of your characters is a CGI furry-faced animal. It's going to be really hard to read his expressions. And then the other is having to react to an imaginary face. And Emma opted to go with her kind of standard straight face for this scene, and I don't know if that was the right call. She probably should have gone for a, happier emotion. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. So trying to sell a huge amount of chemistry and a love story in that short amount of time is a very tall order, and it doesn't work. I don't feel like there's any chemistry between them, and at the end of the dance, I still don't feel like there is. Because in the animated, you have shots like this.
Rising in the east, tale as old as time.
And in the remake, you have shots like this.
Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme.
Okay, so then that ball scene leads into the balcony scene, right? Which to me is just hilarious how awful it is in the remake one, because in the animated version, it is so sweet. You can see the chemistry that they had in the ball scene transfer out into the balcony, where they're looking in each other's eyes, they're holding hands. You can see on the Beast's face just how happy he's about this, and Belle, who's really starting to have affection for him. It's so sweet. But in the remake one, out there just standing side by side, looking straight ahead, standing stiff, it just looks so awkward, and it makes you uncomfortable sitting in the audience, just watching them stand next to each other like boards, just not even looking at each other. It's just awful, awful. Who decided, why? Okay, you guys, this next scene, which is up in the Beast's room with the rose and the mirror, is my favorite scene in the animated version. Everything from the Beast just leaning over the rose, thinking about how he doesn't want to let her go, but it would be best, and that internal struggle you can see going through his face and in his body language. It's just so impactful and meaningful. But then my favorite part of the scene comes when, after he lets her go, and a quick little back and forth that happens between them. It doesn't last for more than a few seconds, but there's so much in it. Let me break it down for you. First off, I love how it starts with him touching her hair so affectionately and tenderly. It's so heartbreaking and sweet. So he closes his eyes and doesn't see that she turns back to him. But then when she lifts up her hand and touches his face so affectionately and lovingly that he opens his eyes again. But then she looks down and turns back before he sees that he reaches out to her. It's just so quick and subtle, and I love it. And let's see how they handled it in the remake.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's about right. Their next big interaction is the transformation scene. Once upon a time, for kicks, I actually did a side-by-side of these two scenes next to each other just because I wanted to see how they compared. Something that I was so surprised at that I wasn't expecting is the remake one is actually quite a bit shorter. If I remember to, I'll look up the times and I'll put them here on the screen so you can see what the time difference is. I was so surprised at how much shorter the remake one is. So as far as this transformation scene goes, I could talk about it forever as well, but I'll just focus on a few points. One being is when Belle says, "I love you." In the animated one, it feels so sincere because it seems like Belle is talking to herself. It's a very genuine comment that she loves him. But in the remake one, I don't know who she's talking to because the Beast is dead at this point. So she's looking this corpse in the eyes and telling it that she loves it. It's so uncomfortable and it doesn't make sense. Honestly, who it feels like she's talking to, the Enchantress is in the room at that time, which I hate. I hate how the Enchantress is there because it is such an intimate, romantic moment between these two characters, and I hate how there's just someone standing in the background. And so it almost feels like Belle is talking to her because she reacts, and so it's so awkward that anyway, it feels so much less sincere because of how it's delivered. And then the entire part of them connecting after he's transformed is all around disappointing in the remake. In the animated one, they take their time. Belle makes sure that she recognizes him and she takes time to familiarize herself, and they let these two characters have a moment after this big transformation, and it ends in such an epic fashion as well. But in the remake, I don't feel it so much because they just do a couple of back and forth shots into each other's faces, and then they kiss, and then it's over. So disappointing. Then the final scene of them together, right? The closing scene where they dance. This could have been an improvement, actually, because in the remake one, they give it more time, and they give the two characters more screen time together, which could be a good thing. So let's see how they use it.
What is it?
How would you feel about growing a beard?
Yeah, that's about what we expected. So just sort of in conclusion here, I feel like whenever there's a problem in a movie, a lot of times it's hard to pinpoint it on just one person or, one department. It usually is a lot of people. And I feel like where a lot of this relationship fails is in the directing, in the writing, and in the acting. I didn't feel like Emma Watson gave a convincing enough performance for me to be able to believe this love story on her side. And I just think she was actually miscast for this part. I don't think she was the right choice for Belle. And it doesn't help that who she's falling in love with is a CGI character. It's a make-believe face, and therefore it's going to be harder for her to show affection for. And it's so unfortunate, because if you look at behind-the-scenes stuff of Dan Stevens acting, he's actually doing a pretty good job. He's giving it his all. I'm impressed with his performance, but unfortunately it doesn't translate through the special effects. It's just so unfortunate. I feel bad for that guy. And I don't feel like the writers knew exactly what they wanted, because they were obviously trying to explore new ideas and new storylines, but they chose to stick with the songs from the original animated version, so they were kind of tied into that storyline. And so they were only half able to do the things that they wanted, and so unfortunately I didn't get a complete and satisfying romance story in the end. I could keep babbling, but I'll just stop it here. So thanks so much for watching, and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you agree, disagree? What did you like and dislike about the movie and the Beast and Belle's relationship? Let me know. So thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye. Okay. You just want to make faces? Good job.
I have word. They're funny. I saw it. Mommy, I'll go Casper.
Okay. Okay, Mommy's gonna do her video.